This is Patrick Daly and welcome to Interlinks. Interlinks is a programme about globalization and the effects it has had on other countries around the world over the last 50 years or so. In each programme we interview a person from another country or with strong connections to another country to get their unique perspective on globalization as it has affected them. Peter, going to start again here, okay? Just going back to the start. Hello, this is Patrick Daly and welcome to Interlinks. Interlinks is a programme about globalisation and the effects it has had on Ireland and other countries around the world over the last 50 years or so. In each programme, we interview a person from another country or with strong connections to another country to get their unique perspective on globalisation as it has affected them, their country and its relationship with the wider world. There's a little bit of history, a dash of economics, a sprinkling of business and an overlay of personal experience both from me and from my interviewees from around the world. Today we are off to Denmark, one of our small country peers in the European Union and a country that is often held up by some politicians and commentators here in Ireland as a country that we should aim to emulate in terms of equality, social services and environmental protection. We will be talking with Sten Vesterli. Sten is a man with a long professional track record in the IT industry and is one of Europe's leading experts on software development and is one of about only 20 Oracle ACE directors worldwide and an author of 3 books on software development. Sten runs an independent consultancy business and conducts business internationally from his base in Denmark, and his stated mission is to make IT live up to its promise. And today we will be finding out just how exactly he does that. I'm delighted to welcome Sten on the line from Copenhagen in Denmark. Welcome, Sten, and thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Patrick.
Great to have you. Sten, could you tell us to start off a little bit about your background and your career to date and how you came to be an independent consultant? I believe maybe some sort of excommunication was part of the process.
Yes. So I'm an electrical engineer by training. I started in a consultancy company back in '95 that worked exclusively with Oracle software. And I worked with their software and became an expert and was part of Oracle's independent corps of expert advisors. Mm-hmm. And then I started my own company in partnership with a couple of others in 2003. And, the excommunication comes in at the point where I was starting to see some things that Oracle weren't really doing the way they should. So my first duty is, of course, to my clients. So I was telling my clients, this stuff here, maybe you should hold off a bit on that, and which was not terribly popular with Oracle. So I was excommunicated from their customer advocates program.
And despite that, you're an Oracle ACE director, which is an award that they gave you, right?
Well, they can give it and they can take it away. So I'm now an ex-ACE director for Oracle.
I see. So tell me, what exactly, so for a lay person, I'm not an IT person, what exactly is Oracle? And maybe what are some of the misconceptions about what it is and what it isn't, even among your clients?
Well, Oracle is a big American software company, and they got started way back in '79, I think. They built one of the first database systems. Before that, there weren't really any. You would have to code every system specific for a specific computer. And Oracle built one of the first database systems, and they're still known for their database. And that's one of the misconceptions there is that the Oracle database is a really good database, but other databases have caught up. So what I'm seeing is that my customers are using buying expensive Oracle database licenses for a lot of systems where less could do.
I see. So let me see if I can kind of clear this in my own head. Many companies have ERP systems, whether it's SAP or JD Edwards or BAN or whatever it is they have. Where does Oracle sit into that? Are they using Oracle databases, or does Oracle have an ERP offering as well?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that Oracle has a database that lies underneath quite a lot, probably most ERP systems. So if you have an SAP system, in all likelihood, it will actually be running on top of an Oracle database.
I see. Okay.
So on one hand, they produce the underlying plumbing, the database that stores all of your financial data. On the other hand, they're also an explicit competitor. They have their own e-business suite, which is an ERP suite. And they've actually been buying up left and right. So JD Edwards is actually an Oracle product. PeopleSoft is an Oracle product. Siebel is an Oracle product today.
I see. Okay.
And on top of all the old stuff, they've also built a new cloud-based service. So something that you would just basically sign up and the whole thing runs on Oracle servers.
Okay.
So they sell applications and database.
I see. Okay. Interesting. That helps me to get it a little bit clearer in my own head, and I'm sure a lot of other professionals out there have some doubts about that. So today you're an independent consultant. I think I can call you a consultant. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so who are your clients, and how do you help them? And what are some of the common outcomes that leaves them better off after they've worked with you than they were before?
So my clients are large IT organizations. And what happens, most of my clients are financial services, bank, insurance. And what I help is I say I deparalyze them. They are those were the businesses that were first into IT. So a bank started out. They still have a huge mainframe somewhere in a basement, and on top of that, they've added layers and layers and layers of complexity. And many of these organizations that have been running IT for 40 years, they've hit the complexity wall. No matter how many resources they throw at a business development perspective, nothing happens because everything is so entangled that they can't make any changes. So what I help them with is to carve out or cut up or deparalyze them, so we can take systems out, so we can actually add new systems, which means that IT spends most of their time keeping the lights on, and they're not really able to respond. So IT gets this bad rap from the business. Say, it takes them forever and they can't do anything. Yes, they have 40 years of accumulated IT systems, and I'm helping them cut through that so they can actually start moving and take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. And
do you do that on an advisory basis where you're the guru pointing them the way, or are you doing it in a hands-on basis, or does it depend on the requirement?
So generally I do it as an advisory service today. So I look at their systems, I provide advice. It could be on a specific project. We are going to implement X. How should we go about that? And how can we integrate this with that? And I will typically work with their specialists at the level that's necessary. So sometimes we can just agree on a high-level architecture. Other times, well, if I need to, I can drill in and I can work with the technicians, and we can have a look at, so there's this web service and we need to convert it in that way. I can do that if necessary.
Okay. And you mentioned to us that generally the clients are large companies, they're IT companies, are in the financial services sector. But when you interact with them, or when you enter into first contact with them to have that discussion about whether you're a good fit for each other and whether you can help them, who is it in the hierarchy that you need to be talking to get, in both of your best interests, to get to the value?
So what the contact is typically established at an IT manager level, somebody who has the responsibility for a specific project or a specific application or specific integration. And ideally, we would work together and we would see we would involve the CIO in seeing how can we solve this, not just solve this specific one integration problem or one project that is stuck. How can we do something a little larger that will have further benefit than just for the specific project?
I see. And that's interesting, because I wanted to ask you how you relate your interventions, which, may be viewed by some as quite technical and tactical, to more strategic business outcomes. How is that done? How is that gap breached?
The CIO can typically see what value he or she will get from the deparallelization. So that means that the IT manager has the responsibility for a specific set of systems, and they see their part. But where the strategic benefit comes in is where the whole organization is suddenly able to move again. Mm-hmm. Which means that it's not just the specific project that had the problem, but the CIO can see that he gains some of the business agility that he was looking for, but he's unable to achieve. So that's the strategic benefit.
I see. And do you work internationally? And if you do, where do you? I know you're based in Denmark, but where do you work internationally?
So yeah, most of my customers today are Denmark and the countries around. I have some Sweden, Germany, etc. I do have some international clients. I have some in the U.S. and some in the Middle East that I've been working with remotely. As a matter of fact, I worked with the National Treasury Management Agency in Ireland.
Oh, really?
And without ever going to visit them.
Okay.
So that is something that was not a large intervention, but I was advising them on a technology transition project, and sometimes we can do that through calls, through documents back and forth, and that's all that's needed.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of plays as well into the environmental agenda, doesn't it? That we don't necessarily need to be getting on planes all the time.
Exactly, yes.
So your ambitions then for the business and for yourself professionally over the next number of years, what would they be?
Well, I want to reach more people so I can help them, so I can make IT live up to its promise. What we're seeing is that in some organizations they have so many skills, they have so much knowledge about their customers, and what happens is that they're not able to take advantage of it because they have wrapped themselves into old systems, a tangled web of old systems. So I want to I love helping people use IT to reach their goals. And what happens is that companies are unable to do that. So I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, but reach more people so I can help more people.
Yeah, and as you say, make IT live up to its promise rather than frustrating many of us, which is what it tends to do often.
Exactly, yes. But it doesn't have to be that way. What happens is that you can see the great IT experiences that we get is most of the time somebody who has built something new from scratch. Mm-hmm. And it is a bit of an unfair comparison to say, well, this company has been running a bank with IT for 40 or 50 years, and we're comparing them with some startup who built their first application 6 months ago.
Sure.
They start from a blank slate, and they can make use of everything that IT has to offer right now.
Yeah,
and I want to have that help established organizations.
Yeah, they have the advantage. They have the advantage of the simplicity and the elegance that they get from starting from zero. Isn't that right?
Exactly. All the knowledge that's been accumulated over these years and all the improvements in tools and technologies.
Okay. My next question, Sten, is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but tell me, why does every country in the world want to be Denmark?
Well, you see, that's funny. You see, what everybody wants is, it's kind of a half argument. Like, everybody wants what we have, but nobody wants to pay what we're paying.
Yeah, sure.
So it's easy to say, if you put something out to the voters and say, would you like more of this? Oh, yes, please. Would you like more of this if your taxes go up? Well, maybe not. So it's not like those of us who live here, we are happy with the way our society, that we've organized our society, but we're less happy about, the cost of it all.
Sure. And Denmark then, how does Denmark see itself in relation to the rest of Europe and the EU project? And in that context, why is Denmark not in the euro?
Well, we're actually we weren't a core member. We came in 1973 together with the UK
and with us. And with Ireland.
Yes. Oh, yes. And so maybe you came in with the same argument that we did, that when the UK comes in, we can't sell them our products if they're in and we're out.
Yeah.
So that's how we came in. We've been slightly reluctant, probably because we think that, like every other country, that we know exactly how things should be done, and the euro, we voted no to the euro to keep at least some nominal independence. In practice, the Danish krone is tied very, very tightly to the euro.
Yeah.
So in effect, we are, for all practical purposes, part of the euro, but we still have our national currency. But in practice, it doesn't make a lot of difference.
Sure. Okay. And in what ways then? When we think of Scandinavia, and I guess a lot of the crime fiction and the dramatization of that on TV and film has become quite popular, and people have become much more familiar with that part of the world. But there are differences between the different countries. So what would you say, in what ways is Denmark similar to or different from your close neighbours, say in Norway and Sweden?
Well, we are culturally and linguistically pretty close, so we can understand each other's language, etc. But geographically, there's a big difference, because Norway is a big mountainous country. Sweden is a big country, also lots of mountain forest, and Denmark is a very small country. We're all agriculture, so there is a big geographical difference, and there's also a difference in what we produce. So Norway is by far the richest country, and they're rich on natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the money to create infrastructure in their very long mountainous country. Sweden has lots of resources, and they have built big industry. Denmark doesn't really have much in the way of industry. Sweden has a lot of big, powerful, world-leading industrial organizations. Denmark is a small country, and we've always been more traders.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a difference in both in the geography, and also I think that's probably what spills over into the structure of our organizations and our companies.
Mm-hmm. I often reflect on the way the world is today, because as you know, I work in supply chain, and you get to see all of these connections around the world, and all of that is a product of this global economic globalization that's been going on since the 1970s or so. And even, I guess, the fact that we know each other and the fact that we're having a conversation is kind of part of that. This probably wouldn't have happened 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So what's your view on the merits or otherwise of this economic globalization? Do you see it as a positive thing, a negative thing, or something a little bit more in between?
I see it as a positive thing, but so everybody has benefited and continue to benefit from globalization. But there are just some that benefit more than others. So if you have a skill, a product, a service, something that can be sold globally, that means that the value of your skills, of your product, of your company goes up when you have access to the whole world.
Yeah, sure.
And that means that, so if you're a hairdresser, well, you're stuck to your local market. But if you create an internet service, you have the whole world. So it's natural that that globalization means that some people and some organizations benefit very much, and others much less so.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective and distinction. So right now at the moment, where do you think we are? So we're seeing this pushback, in terms of nativism, rising nationalism, trade protectionism, and so on. Do you think we're in reverse, or it's just a glitch, or maybe we're changing direction? Where do you think we are now?
Well, I think that that we had a period, especially after the fall of the Iron Curtain, where a lot of people, they read Fukuyama and said, "Oh yes, the end of history is here," which is incidentally not what Fukuyama was actually arguing, but he identified this. Okay, the question: will liberal democracy and our way of arranging ourselves in the West, is that going to be dominant in the whole world? And we had a lot of people who thought that was the way it was going to be. And after a while, we realized that that was not necessarily going to happen. There was not a law of nature that every civilization or every country would end up looking like the West. But it was just a very popular conception in it was the conception in Western countries and in the United States that everybody wanted to be just like us.
Yeah, and it's not so.
Yeah, so what happens is that I was just reread Huntington's Clash of Civilizations recently, and we're seeing that it's, even though it's more than 20 years old, his analysis is still valid. That we're seeing some fault lines between different cultures. So that's why we're seeing trade wars with China, but the nationalism that we're seeing does not really seriously apply within, for instance, Europe. Like, we're identifying ourselves with our nation state, but it's not like the EU is going to fragment into nation states with tariffs again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Interesting. So tell me, Sten, when you're not working in or on your business, what kind of things do you like to do in your free time? Like, I understand that you fly planes and you practice some adventure sports and some things like that. Isn't that so?
Yes. So I love to have projects outside work. So I'll line up something. I say, okay, this will be interesting. So I'll go and figure out how to do that. So I've been diving and paragliding and skydiving, and I decided I want to climb Mont Blanc in France, the highest point in Europe. So I learned some alpine techniques so I could climb the mountain.
Wow.
I decided I wanted to do an Ironman. So I hired a coach and I figured out what does it take, and I trained. That takes about a year of training. So I completed my Ironman in Copenhagen some years ago.
Great, excellent.
And one of my recent things was I've always wanted to be able to fly an airplane. So I started, okay, so now it's time, I think, for me to pick up this project. So I studied and took my private pilot's license. That also takes about a year. There's the theory and the radio and the practical flying and the security procedures and all that. So now I have a private pilot's license, and that's something that we'll definitely notice that there's going to be new projects in the flying that I can continue working on. So there's aerobatics, and there is night flying, and there's instrument flying, and so I can continue on my flying projects for a long time.
Yeah, I think you're unstoppable, Sten. So tell me, just to finish then, Sten, for listeners who'd like to learn more about you, more about your business and how they can benefit from working with you, could you let them know where they can find you and make contact?
Yes, so I think the easiest would be to find me on LinkedIn, Sten Vesterli, Stenvesterli. There aren't that many Vesterlis, so I'm pretty easy to find. And you can find me on my website, which is vesterli.com, or you can just Google Sten Vesterli, and I'll show up with the last with the articles and the books and the conferences and the stuff I've been doing for some years. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sten. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thanks also to our listeners. And remember that if you would like to find out more about globalization, international business, and how we can help you to formulate and implement your own strategies, please check out my blog and website on albalogistics.com and my book, International Supply Chain Relationships, which can be purchased on Amazon and Google Books. This is Patrick Daly of Alba Consulting. Goodbye until next time.